Board is also considering a resolution, in this case in opposition to Proposition 120. So take a motion from a board member, and it looks like that'll be you, Rob.
Yes, I move that the board approve the resolution in opposition to Proposition 120.
Okay, second from a board member I got one from Kristen Draper. Okay, and Rob, go ahead.
Yes, I move that we amend the resolution as presented in the packet in exactly the same way that we amended the previous resolution. That is to remove the last full paragraph, which talks about the board authorizing the expenditure of district funds to distribute a factual summary regarding Proposition 120.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion to amend? And I got one from Kristen Draper, and I won't reread that one more time.
Try to give a summary.
Yeah. Do I need any discussion on this, or can we vote on the amendment? Okay. Vote on the amendment. To roll call vote, please, Lexi.
DJ Anderson.
Aye.
Kristen Draper.
Aye.
Christoph Fev.
Aye.
Rob Pedersen.
Aye.
Carolyn Reed.
Aye.
Jessica Zamora.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay, I'll open it up for discussion. Do you want to read the resolution
That's
first,
the
Rob?
deal. Okay. So, resolution in opposition to Proposition 120. Whereas Proposition 120 is a citizen-referred measure on Colorado's 2021 election ballot that seeks to permanently reduce the residential property tax assessment rate of multifamily housing properties from 7.15% to 6.5%, and the non-residential assessment rate of lodging properties from 29% to 26.4% starting in 2022. And whereas Proposition 120 would reduce property tax revenue to school districts, thereby increasing the amount that the state must pay to backfill the difference, or requiring districts to ask voters to raise future mill levies to offset the reduction in assessment rates. And whereas since 2009, the Colorado General Assembly has tracked the debt owed to Colorado students resulting from the non-payment of funds approved by Colorado voters under Amendment 23 to the Colorado Constitution, and whereas the resulting budget stabilization factor now stands at a cumulative $9.8 billion, and for the 2021-2022 school year alone, Colorado students will not benefit from more than $572 million for their education that voters intended them to have. And whereas the board believes that permanently reducing property tax revenue will further hamper the ability of the Colorado General Assembly to carry out their legally required duty to provide a thorough and uniform system of free public schools throughout the state, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Poudre School District R1 Board of Education officially declares its opposition to Proposition 120 for the above stated reasons. Again, if it's approved, it will be approved and adopted this day, October 12th, 2021.
Okay, thank you for reading that out, Rob. Are there board questions, comments, thoughts on this one? DJ?
Yeah, so we got rid of Gallagher, and one of the biggest reasons that we got rid of that Gallagher amendment last year is because it was going to pull down our assessments rates. We realized what problems that would cause for budgets, not only for education, but also for library districts, fire districts, and such. This is a poor decision, I think, to be out there when we have so many needs we have for students across Colorado to be able to take care of them. And so I'm disappointed that we continue to have this conversation, but with the way that Colorado's financial system is set up, unfortunately, we will be having these every ballot measure probably. And we need to make sure that we spread the word about that. If you're saving $100, is how much more that $100 could be used throughout the state and the school district to help our kids. So I hope that we can get the word out there that this is a bad situation and we need to vote no. And I will be voting yes for this resolution, opposing it.
Thank you, DJ. Kristen, go ahead. Rob.
Yeah, that's fine. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear about this business about reducing property tax revenue, and then the state has to backfill. So the way the thing works, just so you're all clear, right, is that the state sets a an amount of money that they send to school districts on a per-student basis, along with some additional factors like free and reduced and whatnot. And that total money, that total per-student money multiplied times the number of student districts has to come from somewhere, right? If it comes from local property taxes, or the part that comes from local property taxes, does not have to be sent from the state, from their general fund revenues, right? So if we, as a citizenry in Colorado, vote to reduce the assessment rates, we will be getting less money from property taxes. That amount per student will stay the same because there's a sort of formula for how that's figured, right? And therefore, the amount between the property taxes and the total amount that's due, if you will, for all of the students in the district has to come from somewhere. Where is it going to come from? It's going to come from the general fund of the state, right? And what that means is more money will have to come out of the general fund to cover education. There's only a limited amount of more money, right, that's available on an annualized basis because of Tabor and just because of the economy and whatnot, right? And so basically more money has to come out of a limited pie, right? And so the net is going to be that either more money is allocated to education and therefore less to transportation, less to the justice system and prisons and healthcare and all of the other priorities that the district has to, that the state has to attend to, or there will be less money that comes to the school districts, and the budget stabilization factor that we referred to in both of these resolutions will grow, which means we're not getting the amount of money that the state believes that we need on a per student basis, and that the voters effectively approved through Amendment 23. So, you know, we just can't really be in a position, I mean, I don't think it's wise for us to be in a position to be reducing the property tax assessment rate and having this kind of negative effect on schools, at the education system, and potentially other services that the state provides through the mechanism I've talked about.
Thank you for your comments, Rob. Kristen?
Yeah, so basically this is pie. We always talk about things that, you know, love is not pie, and you don't have to worry about everybody gets a big enough slice. And this is pie. And so somebody's going to get a smaller slice regardless of how we cut it up because it's a single pie. And so if the taxes go down, somebody gets a smaller slice of pie. It's either education who gets a smaller slice of pie, or transportation who gets a smaller slice of pie, or your fire department that gets a smaller slice of pie, or your police department, or whatever it might be. Somebody's getting a smaller slice of pie. And so I think what we're encouraging people to think about is, you know, for the amount of money that you have to pay in your property taxes for what your house is worth, is that, you know, it's a considerably smaller amount, and is that worth not having the fire truck? Is it worth not having, you know, money to the school system? So that's what we're considering here, because it's a pie.
Thank you. Carolyn?
I would just like everybody to think about the human cost here for when there's less money. We're talking about less money for teachers. I've heard people in here talk about how teachers need better pay. Well, better pay for teachers has to come from someplace, and so we have to think about that. But not only will we potentially be taking money away from teachers, we're going to be taking money away from children. And when I think about my personal case, before Tabor came around, my daughter got 4 one-hour sessions a week of speech and language development help. And that's expensive services, that's one-on-one services. But those early interventions make huge differences in children's lives. It takes what can be a weakness for a child and a lifetime disability and can turn it into a strength for them and can change their lives. You know, my daughter graduated from high school and went on to get a degree in linguistics. She speaks 2 languages now. Early interventions work. They cost money. When we take money away from schools, we're taking money away from children. I mean, we really need to think about our kids and our teachers, and so that's why I oppose 120, and I'll be voting for the resolution.
Great. Any comments, Jessica? Okay, you don't need to, it's it's up to you.
I mean, I feel like it's been covered very well. It's been very thoroughly described why and how to think about it. I will also be voting the same because the money's got to come from somewhere. So if I reduce my property taxes, it's going to increase something else.
Okay, I'll state it my way before we vote. I agreed to run for election to this seat 8.5 years ago and volunteer in this position because I find education to be foundational and fundamental. I believe passionately in what we're doing for all of our children everywhere in the state. Today, I find every year that infrastructure and education, just to name two of the major items that we work through in the legislature, are in a disruptive and contentious discussion for every dollar that's out there. Those are just two. There are many items that we're working on to keep this state functioning. Every year, the legislature has to nitpick over every single dollar that gets used. But I do fear that this kind of ballot measure, if it were to pass, is going to eat away at the schools. It happens all the time. I also, while I honor the discussion and the question on the ballot in general, I find that doing it on an off-year ballot with very little time to have the discussion as a community is almost disingenuous. This will be a year where not a lot of people are out voting. The discussion will not be broad, and yet we will have very meaningful and impactful decisions made here. These are just a few of the reasons that I will vigorously support this resolution in opposition to 120. So put that out there. Any final comments? Okay. Lexi, I'll take a roll call vote, please.
DJ Anderson,
Aye.
Kristen Draper,
Aye.
Christoph Ev,
Aye.
Rob Pedersen,
Aye.
Carolyn Reed,
Aye.
Jessica Zamora.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.